Listen to The Brew for the best classic hits of the 60s, 70s, and 80s. KOKL, Okmulgee, Oklahoma.
SJ, welcome to Mvskoke Radio, your weekly source for tribal and community news, interesting guests and discussions, plus a local events calendar. SJ, Stungo, Gary Fife, Jaho Jeff Kados.
Darren DeLon, Jaho Jeff Kados.
Did you like that Hall & Oates intro we had?
Yeah, I did. It was like pretty good to start the hour off.
Okay, well, anyway, it's just, sometimes these buttons just don't react quickly enough for me.
Understandable.
Okay, I hope everyone has recovered from elections.
I hope so too, to be honest with you. I'm kind of glad I'm not going to be getting no more campaign stuff. My dartboard's running out of space.
Yeah, I was getting my mute button on the remote was getting a little worn out too. Well, I hope everyone went out and voted, regardless of whatever you decided which way you wanted to go. But it's done. If you've done your civic duty, be proud of yourself, and we'll see what happens with the next batch of politicians in the next several years.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, coming up, we've got a couple things. We had originally planned to have someone in from Environmental Services for Recycle Day, but we've got a schedule change on that one, but we still have a nice show lined up. We, since Veterans Day is almost upon us, we will be talking with Mr. Ken Davis from our Veterans Affairs Department about what they've got planned to honor our veterans.
Then also we got Mr. Joseph and Stacy Pratt. Stacy's a Mvskoke Creek citizen, and Joseph is her husband. Joseph just recently got out of the Army after serving a number of years defending our country, and we're just going to talk to him about how everything was in the service and how them two were able to keep everything going while being separated in like different countries. So be good to listen to them and catch up.
All right. Well, since we've got plenty of time, why don't we just go ahead with our Pratts. Welcome to our studio and Mvskoke Radio. We appreciate you making time to come down.
Thank you. Well, happy to be here.
The Veterans Day celebration's coming up. We take time nationally to honor those who have given service. And wanted to appreciate you, what you've done for our country. So why don't you, I guess, start off by telling us a little bit about yourselves and your service.
Oh, go ahead. You're the one that knows about the
service. Okay. I'm Joseph Pratt. I grew up around Stidham and Mvskoke. Joined the Army in 1995. And I served 23 years, 4 months, and 2 days, according to the paperwork that they gave me in airborne infantry or light infantry career fields.
That is some heavy-duty, I'd say.
That's something I would never, I don't think I could possibly fathom even trying to do that. So, I mean, it's amazing to hear. Oh, what about you, Stace? Tell us a little bit about yourself, please.
I am Stacy Pratt, and I grew up in Tahlequah, but my family's in Destin, Henrietta Morris, and I am a college English professor usually. Currently I'm a writer full-time, but I'll be teaching for the College of the Mvskoke Nation in the spring, and I teach English. We've been married for 15 years, and we've lived all over the place.
That's amazing. I mean, that's great to hear, and amazing as well. I mean, especially, with people who are serving in the armed forces, or one of them of the couple, whether they be whether they're girlfriend, boyfriend, or husband and wife. Sometimes they is one that's in the armed forces and they have to go overseas, or they have to serve or at a base, and usually that's away from their significant other. Did that ever happen to you all whenever y'all, as long as y'all have been together?
A lot.
Yeah.
A lot.
Frequently.
So people will say, y'all act like newlyweds. I say, we are basically newlyweds because every other year, literally every other year of our marriage, he's been deployed until the last 2 years of his career. So we were away from each other almost more than we were together, because even when he was home, he'd deploy for a year. And when he was home, he would still have to go to training for, 3 months at a time, a month at a time, or be out in the field, across town on our same base, but still gone for a week. So you're separated a lot as a military family. I think that's something that is hard on a lot of people, but we were kind of used to it.
That rolls into the next question with being that separated, like what were some of the places like that you might have lived at stays besides the part of the base, one side of the base to the other side, but maybe like different towns, different countries or anything like that?
Let's see. Where all have you lived? And I've lived some of them.
Altogether, I've been, Fort Stewart, Georgia, Baumholder, Germany, Fort Campbell, Kentucky, Vicenza, Italy. That's where I magically managed to get her to come live with me in Italy. I don't know why she chose that. Then Fort Sill for a little bit, and then Fort Drum, New York, and then lastly Fort Polk, Louisiana.
And while you were, I know you said that she came to live with you in Italy, but while he was at all those different places, were you like at one area, or did you move around a lot as well?
I moved around too. So we met right out of high school, and we were in a band together. He's a drummer. I'm a guitar player. Yes, like rock stars in Tahlequah at the coffee shop. So we did that, and then we went to college for, I guess, a year, and then he joined the Army. But I kept going to college. So I graduated at Northeastern State University with a little bit of time at OU to take the Mvskoke language when that program started in the 90s. And then I went to school at University of Arkansas for my master's degree. And it was after I finished my master's degree and I'd started working on my doctorate in Mississippi, in South Mississippi at University of Southern Mississippi in Hattiesburg. And that's when we got married. We had decided to get married, the Iraq War started, and he jumped in with the 173rd Airborne. And we didn't exactly know that was going to happen, but it did. And we were like, well, we'll get married whenever this is over. And he ended up getting injured in Iraq. And so we were like, we just need to get married right now. Our priorities have now shifted. So we got married right in the middle of that deployment. He came home and had convalescent leave. We got married, and then he went back to the war, and I went back to graduate school in Mississippi for my doctorate.
The prospect of being separated so much, it's sort of like the elephant in the living room. Did you all discuss that? And then, you chose airborne, is that correct?
Yeah, well, I'd been various types of infantry my whole career. But I had been working. The Army often has a say in what you get to do and don't get to do, it turns out. And so it took me a while to get into an airborne unit. And then once I was there, but we had known each other since right after we graduated high school. So we were friends for a long time before we ever got married. So by the time, as I like to say, I tricked her into marrying me, she already knew my approach to things, and she knew this is what I did, and I wasn't doing it because I had no other options in life. It was what I chose to do, so it was understood, or at least we thought we understood, if nothing else, that there was going to be separation piece to it, and then we just worked our way through it once it came upon us.
And the same for him, because, I was in college all that time in graduate school, so I wasn't necessarily going to be waiting at home for him when he came home, He had to come over to the University of Arkansas and see me and get a parking ticket. So that found him while he was deployed in Macedonia. Yeah, they're kind of serious there.
Go Hogs.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, we only had a year of friendship before he started being in the Army and I started being in college. So our relationship, our friendship even was founded on letters and phone calls and brief visits. So
that's what I was going to ask. Like, how did that? How was the communication still going? Because from what you're telling us, you started around. All this was going around in the early to mid '90s. So last century, pretty much. Yeah. So when the internet was still in the baby phases. So it was right now. I'm going to say it has to be the mail, the letter in the envelope with the stamp. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was definitely an old-fashioned correspondence.
Snail mail.
Snail mail. Like, even before before I left for the Army, she was in Norman, I was in Mvskoke. You know, I don't think I was working at Long John Silver's at that point, but I did not have a very high-paying job. I certainly couldn't afford to pay a long-distance phone bill. You know, my mom would go upside my head if I ran the phone bill up, so letters it was. And that was just from Mvskoke to Norman.
Yeah.
I sympathize with you there. I had a year-long engagement with my wife, and she was in Minneapolis, and I was in Anchorage, Alaska.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Ooh,
Yeah.
boy.
It's romantic, though.
Yeah.
And we're both writers, so it worked out for us.
That is cool. That is very cool to hear that. I mean, we got like just a group of writers here going on. I mean, like, so, you know, with we got normal. I mean, of course, with my letters, you're like, "Hi, Aunt, how are you doing?" And all. you go, "This is my day." So, but you know, like, I know y'all are not gonna give us every single subject, but you know, like, what would like the y'all telling about each other in the letters? Like, what did y'all talk about whenever y'all had the time to do that? Like, how was your day and everything?
Everything.
Yeah, you know, I would get, ideally, the best letters, sometimes I would get double-spaced, 6-7 page long letters from her that just told me everything that was going on. And I wouldn't have the time, so in response to her 6-page type letter, she would get something scribbled on a piece of paper that says, "I'm good, love you," written under red flashlight when I wasn't supposed to be writing letters or something.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Quite often.
Yeah, that's true. And your handwriting gets even better when you're writing by LED. So, you know.
Oh, he advances with technology.
Yeah, I wrote minutia, though. Like, I prepared him for the fact that when we got married, I was going to tell him every little minute detail of my day, because my letters would just be like, "And then Sue Shree said this, and his nurse said this, and here's what we were all wearing, and here's what we ate, and here's what we did next." I mean, it would probably be annoying in real life, but in a letter, it's probably okay.
Yeah, and when I had time, I would write more, obviously, but a lot of it was on guard or doing this or thinking of you, bye, and then out it goes.
I sent him the church news.
Did the military presence kind of limit what you said in those letters? You know, like, obviously we're deployed to XYZ, and we have, you know, 13,000 troops here armed with blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Obviously that wouldn't, but you know, was there some restraint there?
There wasn't restrictions like there was back in World War II and stuff like that, where you had a censor. You know, like, my platoon leader didn't have to read my mail and make sure I wasn't disclosing any national secrets before I set it off or anything. I'm more self-censored than anything else. You know, I didn't get into too nitty-gritty details of everything that was going on. We had some code words that we would use to kind of convey what was going on. So, like, if I'd been real busy and there had been action or whatever, I'd just say things have been exciting this week and leave it at that. You know, so.
Yeah, we had the code word super. So if things were not great, terrible things had happened, but you really weren't up to talking about them right now, say, "How are you?" Super. You know, I'll talk about it later when we're home. You know, and that was a code that something has happened, because you know, back then, I knew where he was basically, and so when there would be something on television about soldiers getting killed, but we didn't know who it was yet, but I'd know it was in their area. And that's really scary, because you don't know if you're going to get a knock on the door or a phone call or a message from your family group. But when I'd get a call from him, I'd be really relieved. But we couldn't talk about it, even though I knew that this had happened to him. You know, so but you can't talk about it. OPSEC is everybody's business.
Let me take that a step further. After your comment there, you know, we see movies this scenario portrayed. You know, the high-ranking officer and a priest or a pastor, preacher come to the door, and you know why they're there. Did you ever find yourself in a situation where you were looking at something or dreading that possibility?
You know, you can't live your life worried about it all the time, but there's always a part of you that does. So when we lived in New York, whenever I remember just turning the corner every day and going, "Please don't let there be a car in my yard. Please don't let there be a car in my yard," when I came home from work. And if a strange car did drive up into my yard, your heart sinks for a moment until somebody gets out and it's not a chaplain. And, you know, you don't want anybody to knock on your door. You know, the Schwann man could send me into a panic because I didn't know who was knocking on my door if I wasn't expecting it. So you try to live without thinking about it, but you're always aware.
The prospect of that befalling your wife, did that ever run through your mind?
Yeah. So the way I dealt with it personally, and then, you know, like I said, this is me. I can't speak for everybody. You know, all my brother and sister veterans out there that have had to go through the same thing. With in my case, I would have the dread leading right up until it was time to deploy. And then what I tried to do is when I walked out the door or when I got out of the truck, depending on how I was getting to movement that day, that was it as far as worrying about the what I could or what may or may not happen to my family if I got killed.
The possibility. The
possibility of it. I mean, obviously out on missions or what have you, you worry about other stuff that's similar, but the human side of being worried, not the animalistic side of being scared, human side of being worried, you have to put that to the side or you're going to help it come true, was the way I looked at it.
Right,
so
you had bigger things to worry
about.
about.
So by the time I was on my last deployment, you know, we had it down. I'd get out, I'd drive to where we were going to link up at with my unit, and I would drive there so she didn't have to drive because I know she was going to have to drive back. And I love you, and I'll see you when I get back. And that was it.
Yeah. And even on my side, you really can't dwell on it. Like, you're never not aware. But I had 125 students to take care of, you know, and I have my own life to live. And the worst thing I could imagine would be losing him that way or anyway. And I watched it happen to my friends. I have so many friends that were young widows because we're infantry wives. But you just can't live your life worrying about it, or you won't live your life at all.
The reaction you must have had when you saw this happen to other women. Falling back on movies again, we've seen it, something like that Mel Gibson flick.
We Were Soldiers.
We Were Soldiers, yeah. That struck me as quite a movie because it not only dealt with the conflict and combat, but what was going through the families at the time, and it's very strong portrayal by the lady who portrayed his wife. And they would have to go around to other houses and inform the wives that their husband was lost in battle. And, did you ever have to deal with that? And when you do that, what do you say to someone?
Well, thanks to that Vietnam generation, we don't have to deal with that in the same way that they did.
Yeah, I was just getting ready to say one of the many things I respect about the Vietnam generation, or all the generations of service members that went before me, but particularly the Vietnam era, we learned so much about what to do and what not to do in certain cases from the Vietnam era that it carried over. You know, and when the Gulf War, or when the GWAT, whichever way you want to call it, OIF, OAF, all that stuff started, there was still high-level officers, generals that had served in Vietnam as lieutenants and captains still floating around in the service. So we've gotten a lot better at taking care of the family side of things. It's not like World War II where you get a Western Union telegram that says, you know, we're sorry to inform you. There's a certain process that comes to it, and it's not put on the wives, other wives, to tell wives or family members that it's something has happened. There's an actual there'll be designated NCOs, officers, and chaplains, and that's their entire job during the deployment for that unit, is to be the notification team that has both the unfortunate duty and the very grave duty of letting the next of kin know that something has happened. Like in my case, Stacy would have been notified, and also my mother. That's the way I had it set up.
Yeah, because we lived in different states. So,
yeah, so
that she didn't have to call me, or I didn't have to call her.
Yeah.
So.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And then the two the two teams would have coordinated between each other, trying to make it as close, making the notification as close as possible, you know, so like my mom wouldn't have to set on the news for a week until they could find Stacy because she was off
gallivanting
around the world or whatever she was doing.
But with our friends, you know, with the other wives, they're your friends. We're really close. Infantry wives are very close to each other, and when somebody died, sometimes we were all together, sometimes we would be apart from each other because we would all go home to where our families were during the deployment. So we try to make as many funerals as we can, and you don't know what to say, and there isn't any right thing to say, but you just try to hold on to each other like you have been through the whole deployment, and be with them and not be afraid of their grief, you know.
Stacy, do you still keep in touch with the wives that you develop? I mean, are they around here, or are they like throughout the country?
They're all over the place.
Okay.
They're all over the place, and yeah, we keep in touch, and we're trying to plan to get together, and it's hard because we all have, of course, families and jobs, and some of them have babies and things like that. But we're working on it. But yeah, we're still a little gang. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Danger to the world that we are. They still let us hang out.
The show is Mvskoke Radio, so I want to ask an Indian question here. Did culture or your heritage play any part in kind of dealing with situations, or afterwards did you perhaps call on some spiritual strength or the warrior tradition? Did that figure into your lives anywhere along during these years?
For me, it really did, and I have a story that my family always likes to remember and tell, that, you know, when my great uncle was in World War II, he said, sometimes I just felt like, we go to the Wathley Church in Dustin. He said, sometimes I just felt like I could hear the horn. And so when he was in, I guess, Afghanistan is because it had to be because we had cell phones by then. So you didn't hardly get phone calls, and when you did, of course, you answered them. So I was at church, and I got a phone call, and I answered it, and it was him. And, you know, if you're at a Creek church, when the horn blows, you have to be quiet. And we had just started talking, and the horn blew, and he heard it. And so he said, we have to be quiet. And we sat there, listened to that horn blow while he was in Afghanistan, and I was in Dustin, while we were just, you know, minutes ticking by on our 5-minute phone call that we were allowed back then. And that was just how much, but it was a very beautiful moment also, just because it brought him there with us, because my church prayed for him all the time, you know, my congregation and the mother of our church and the women and the men, and I appreciated that. And another time, because I was raised in that tradition, there was a time when he was in Afghanistan the first time, when I was living in Italy, and I remember I was we had this little laundry room that looked like a cave, and I was doing our laundry, and just every once in a while in that first part of the wars, you just get this horrible sinking feeling like you couldn't even believe this was happening, and what if he died, and what if this happened, and how horrible this all was. And all of a sudden, I just had this, I was praying, like, what do I do? And just had this sense of, no matter what happens, you'll be okay, because we always are, as Creek people. We are always okay. We have no choice, you know. But we're together, and we will be, even if things are terrible, we go on.
With back to the communication part. You know, we talked about letters, and then we went to cell phones, or you was able to talk on phones for a while. Were those? You said you were only allowed like maybe 5 minutes to talk. Or was that?
Yeah, it would depend on. So, like in 2003, in the invasion in Iraq. Like, I didn't hear from her first 6 months, and then we finally got satellite phones issued to the company, and the primary use of the satellite phone was in case all our other radio systems went down. It was like the E in your PACE plan, or your emergency communication. I won't get too Army technical nerd here, although it's very easy. Anyway, but a happy side effect of us having the sat phones was they used them as a morale tool, so we'd get to make short calls, but we couldn't make very long calls because it would use up the time off the sat phone. So that's where it started out, with having short amount of time. And then as the deployments kept going and technology crept up, there would be more modern communication, and you would get more time. And a lot of it came down to is whether or not you had time to make a call and things like that, or not getting interrupted while you're making the call. So she was talking about the horn going off on the horn being sounded at church, and everybody knows you got to be quiet there. On my end, we've been having phone conversations, and the bass gets mortared. Or you get called out for a QRF, and it's just like, well, it was nice talking to you. I got to go. And then, like, QRF mission, I get called out. I hang up, and then she doesn't hear from me for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
For us non-military types, QRF.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Quick reaction.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, QRF, the Quick Reaction Force.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Yeah, sorry about that.
No, you're fine. You're fine. We should have known all this. I mean, I have a sister in the Army. My brother-in-law's still in the Army, and I figured we would learn some of these right now, but we haven't yet, so that's all my fault, too.
There are a lot of acronyms.
I've been trying to demilitarize myself, but
I'm glad I never had to
hard.
militarize myself. I was sweating out the Tet invasion. You know, I was getting out of high school then, and thinking, oh boy, rice paddies, here I come. And luckily, Nixon stopped the draft 2 numbers from me.
Oh my gosh.
So I was always been kind of curious about, you know, the connection there and having to do that and live this whole other life, and then what's going on at home. So when you were on the phone and you heard that horn, what was it that's going through your mind?
2 things went through my mind. One was, I'm glad I heard the horn first, because normally I'm the one that's talking over the horn, and everybody else goes quiet, and I'm still rambling on with some tale. And the other thing went through my mind simultaneously is I would be okay with coming home right this second. Like, when I would deploy, I tried to be, like, without getting too deep into things, like I was in it to win it, because the way I look at it, if you go there thinking you're going to be a victim, or if you're going to, like, you got to be committed to it. That's my personal opinion. So very often, once I got into theater, I was all in all the time. That was how I got through things. But the church the horn brought me around to to reason, reminded me of other things.
And I hope it wasn't the angel Gabriel.
Yeah, you know, all in due time, but not today, as they say.
You know, now, you know, you after 23 years, 23 years, my apologies, out of the Army now. Now you get to see each other every day. You know, what's that adjustment been like?
It's been heaven.
It's been perfect. No, it really has, though. I mean, we get along. We've talked about this before with you a little bit, that our priorities were so shifted by even that first deployment, because he got hurt, you know, people got killed. The war is very real, and you're not going to fight about petty stuff, and everything's petty compared to that. So we have a pretty peaceful house. It's fun having him there, and it's fun to think about. Not fun, I guess, a relief to not have to make all the decisions by myself and do all the stuff by myself.
With you know, now that y'all get to see each other, do y'all? This is gonna be a crazy question, but do y'all miss writing each other? Do y'all miss writing the letters? I mean, I know when we talked earlier, you know, you had the 6 to 11 pages.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes you just found like a piece of, like an MRE, and you just wrote on that, and because y'all could send those out. But do y'all miss writing those, or do y'all still have those, like those letters?
Yeah, I have 2 tough boxes full of letters that I've kept over the years. Most of them, turns out, are from her. She's always been my biggest supporter. Sorry, Mom. Yeah, I wouldn't say I miss it, as in
the situations.
I don't miss it, but I'm grateful it happened.
Yeah, that's what I was. Thank you for finishing my thoughts for me. So.
Yeah, and we're getting more like that now that we're together.
Yeah, we haven't actually started finishing each other's sentences yet, but I'd say about 10 years.
He'll answer things that I didn't actually ask, and vice versa, and that's really. I think you get close by.
Yeah, I think that happens with any successful marriage, and we've just finally been around each other long enough for us to notice.
Well, Joseph and Stacy,
We want to keep them with us, but we do have to.
Yeah, we're gonna take a short break. We're gonna come back with we're gonna still be talking to Joseph and Stacy. So please stay tuned. We're going to take a short break, so stay tuned to Mvskoke Radio.
The Mvskoke Creek Nation wishes all high school athletic teams the best of luck and safety this year. The Mvskoke Creek Nation, the fourth largest tribe in the United States with 83,570 citizens. To find out more about the Mvskoke Creek Nation, check out their website at mcn-nsn.gov or find them on Facebook at MCNPR.
Hear that? That's the sound of hope being killed by meth. Methamphetamine use is causing huge problems in our community. Hear that? That's the sound of something you can do about it. Events like rodeo, res ball, and family time can help keep kids away from meth.
Talk to your kids. Keep our culture alive. A message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians.
Learn more at ncai.org.
Okay, we're back here on Mvskoke Radio. We're speaking with Joseph and Stacy Pratt about their experience as a military family, being separated, and communications and thoughts of each other and coming back. So we have a chance here to kind of get some real insight from these two. Now, let me toss this one into you. Do you communicate with other families that are kind of in the same situation? Is there some sort of get-together that you all do, whether it's formal or informal?
We communicate. Again, the digital age has helped everybody stay together, even if it's a false sense of staying together sometimes. Unfortunately, we're bad about not all coming together until there's a funeral, at least in our particular circle of friends. And that's just, again, like we talked about earlier, life goes on. People are all over the place. You know, it's hard to get together, but we can still send, we can call, we can send texts, that kind of thing. I have a circle of guys, because so 23 years I've made a lot of Army buddies, for lack of a better term. And so I have guys from my first unit in the Army all the way up until this last one that I was in that I stay in communication with, even if it's just sending a smart aleck text or something, or a stupid meme or whatever is going on these days. But we could do better about coming together when it's not a crisis or a funeral.
Well, it's just like any other family. We all always hear that phrase, we got to find better ways to get together.
Absolutely.
Except us. My family's together constantly. If there's one fight, there are 8. My family's pretty close.
Yeah, we got 2 sitting across across each other right now. So
we find ways of getting together.
With back to after now that you're retired and everything, what do y'all do? How do y'all fill y'all's days? Now what activity is going on? Yeah.
Well, I write, like I said, I'm a full-time freelance writer, and I write for a website called Book Riot, but primarily I write for First American Art Magazine, which is a magazine by and about indigenous artists and arts from all of the Americas. And we cover all art. Literature is it's kind of my specialty, but also we cover all art, visual art, film, literature, music, all of it. That fills a lot of my time. I have a lot of deadlines, and I love it.
And I try and keep the force balanced. Since she does so much, I try and do as little as possible. I would like to stress to everybody listening and everybody looking at me right now that I've only been out of the Army for roughly 90 days and some change, so I feel that it is okay that I am still not doing a lot. I go to Mvskoke language classes on Monday and Wednesday, and I'm in the process of getting CLEAT certification for armed security guard work, just so I'm doing something, and outside of that, I read and I relax, and I'm still chasing, trying to shoot a perfect 100 bullseye at 25 meters with a pistol. I've shot a lot of 97s and 98s, but I have not cleared 100, and that is one of my main focuses right now.
Well, that's close enough. You get the job done. Now, I think the dramatic moment that's been running through my mind is when you reunite. and I presume you've been through this a few times. Are there times that stick out in your mind where you see each other?
Can't wait to hear
that we can
story.
talk about on the radio.
Well, let's say the FCC might have something to say about it. Are there things that you might be able to share, perhaps?
I don't know what
You
you're
can
laughing
giggle
about,
if
so
you
go
want.
ahead.
It's fine.
Well, there's been a lot of, I've deployed at least, 5 times for the GWAT, I think. So there's been plenty of reunions, and it's always good. And I'm just happy to be home and see the love of my life. And I know she feels the same, but she's often worried about what she wore, that kind of thing. And I have it good because I'm in uniform, so I'm gonna look good no matter what. So that's never a problem for me. I was coming back from OEF 6, so my second deployment to Afghanistan, I want to say Afghanistan, and that'd been a rough deployment. Like, we felt like pretty much from the time I got off the plane till the time we got back on the plane. I lost my best friend. We had lots of wounded. I think something like 12 Silver Stars awarded to my company and my battalion during that deployment. So it was going to be even more emotional than usual. I knew that coming. And there had been delays, and I'd been nervous, so I'd been drinking water, drinking soda, drinking coffee. It turns out she had been nervous, drinking water, drinking tea, drinking soda. So we were trying to have this romantic moment, and fighting back tears and everything else. But the main thing that we both agreed upon was that we needed to go use the bathroom.
He said, I have to go I'm sorry to say this. I'm like, thank goodness you said that, because I wasn't going to say it.
No. Well, at least it's all there in one piece.
And then it was a Odyssey trying to find an open bathroom by the parade field.
No, and I went to the bathroom in the men's bathroom, and now I'm telling you on the radio. And it was in Italy, though. It didn't count.
I stood guard by the door, so.
Didn't count.
Okay, well, we're running out of time here, but
We're ending on that.
well, if you have to go to the bathroom, it's in the back.
Good to know.
I guess in the final minute or so we've got left, are there words of advice or encouragement that you would give to other families in the same situations?
Well, for women, or I guess men too, who are married to a soldier during this deployment, this what feels like the endless war, that it's worth it. You have to make to make your own life aside from it, not apart from it, but think of your own goals and your own dreams and your own talents and use those, because you want to not be boring in your letters that you write. And if he or she they're living their dream to be a soldier, and you can do that as well. You don't have to focus your whole life on their career. It makes your marriage stronger, I think.
My words of wisdom is going to be very platoon sergeant-like of me. On the service member side of it, be the absolute best soldier, sailor, airman, Coast Guard, Marine that you can be, and that's going to be the best thing you can do to get home to your family. And when you get home to your family, enjoy your family. What's done is done, and just take the time that you have. It might not always be there.
We want to thank Joseph and Stacy Pratt taking the time out of y'all's days. Now, almost say better days, now that y'all's together, and just being able to come onto the radio station, or coming down to the radio station, be able to talk with us. I want to thank you very much, Mado.
What she said.
Well, you'll get that in your language class.
I'm working on it. Yeah.
Okay. All right, we'll take a short pause here, and then we have Mr. Ken Davis from our Veterans Affairs Office coming in to share what they've got planned for honoring our veterans. So stay with us here on Mvskoke Radio on the Brew.
I started doing it when I was 11. I wanted to be just like my big brother. And some of my friends were already doing it. We got hooked fast. I just can't get enough. I'm Jacob, and I'm addicted to playing the drums.
There's lots of stuff that makes it cool to be Native. Doing meth isn't one of them. Find something better to do. Check out ncai.org. A message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians.
Hear that? That's the sound of hope being killed by meth. Methamphetamine use is causing huge problems in our community. Hear that? That's the sound of something you can do about it. Events like rodeo, res ball, and family time can help keep kids away from meth.
Talk to your kids. Keep our culture alive. A message from the Partnership for a Drug-Free America and the National Congress of American Indians.
Learn more at ncai.org.
Welcome back to Mvskoke Radio. Joining me here in the studio is Mr. Ken Davis, or should we call it Gunnery Sergeant?
Actually, Major.
Major. Oh, my God, was I wrong there. My dad would have kicked my tail for that.
Yes.
Well, we've been talking about veterans' families here earlier in the program, and wanted to lead into what your office has lined up for honoring our veterans. So, for those of our listeners who really aren't too familiar with your office, maybe you can give us a quick capsule.
Sure. First of all, compliments and praise to the previous guest, Mr. and Mrs. Pratt. Very good soldier. She gave some marvelous insight to how a spouse handles deployments. And he's just typical of our United States Army soldiers, dedicated, hard-charging, brave. So he's one of the reasons we should all be proud of America. So Mr. Pratt, former Marine to soldier, God bless you, good job. Welcome home. The Veterans Affairs Services Office, we offer services to our veterans. Our main thrust we do is representing our veterans against the Department of Veterans Affairs in helping them secure the benefits and services you have earned. You're not entitled to it, you're not to be granted, it's what you've earned. Big difference on the way this whole concept is approached. So that's our main goal, is to make sure that our veterans will receive the benefits and services they've earned from the Department of Veterans Affairs, which, by the way, represents the American public as a whole. It is, I think, vitally important Mvskoke veterans realize and actually acknowledge it is the American, the individual American, that has decided to help their veterans, their combat veterans throughout life. And they've appointed the United States Department of Veterans Affairs to represent them on an individual basis, serving our veterans. So again, veterans, what you receive because of what you've earned from the Veterans Administration is actually from a grateful nation. And that's the best way to see it. A grateful nation saying, thank you, how can we help you?
And your office helps them navigate the paperwork or any snags or problems they may run into?
Yes, very much, from A to Z. The only thing we require of the veterans is a sign and date. We do all the other paperwork, tracking them, getting them prepared for their examinations. I don't ever remember. In fact, I know for a fact I never sent paperwork home with any veteran, because we like to very much, be in the middle of all the mix, and it's been a very successful way of doing things. Is there micromanagement? God, I hope so. Yeah, I don't plan on changing that. But as far as guiding through the veterans, and is there an adversarial relationship between the United States Department of Veterans Affairs and American veterans? Yes, but a large portion of it's overblown. I can only take I've been up against other states, and there's quite an experience going outside. And Oklahoma's different. The VA in Oklahoma is different. They march a different drummer. They follow the same rules and regulations, but the attitude of the employees of the Veterans Administration here in Oklahoma is the attitude, we're going to find a way to award your claim. I've gone up against other states, Kansas, California, Texas, Wisconsin, Indiana. Their attitude I've run into is, we're going to find a way not to award your claim. So it's different attitude. Again, the cooperative nature of the employees of the United States Department of Veterans Affairs here in Oklahoma is different, and to be complimented. And that by no means, the United States government, does that mean come in and ruin it. It's working, so don't touch it. It ain't broke, don't break it. So the Department of Veterans Affairs might want to take a real good hard look at how they operate here in Muskogee through the VA and say, you know what, my gosh, it's working. They got fantastic relationships with the tribes out there. They got a good relationship with the veterans as a whole in the state of Oklahoma. What are they doing right, and how can we institute what they're doing in Oklahoma throughout the country? And again, United States government, don't break it because it ain't broken. Just learn from the way things are done in Oklahoma.
While we have you here, let me ask you about numbers. Mm-hmm. Is there a total of perhaps Muskogee citizens who have served and fought? How many of these folks does your office deal with?
Sure. The living list, the most it's ever been was right at 1,520, right at one time we had living. Now living, I believe we're down to 1,100 living, and that's primarily in Oklahoma. And out of that number, maybe 100 outside the state of Oklahoma, only because they've called in. We've got to remember, our reach over to Texas, Kansas, California is extremely limited. Very, very limited in how far we can reach out. As far as coordinating with the veterans offices in Kansas, Texas, and California, virtually impossible. Things just don't get done over the phone or fax or emails. Now, as far as how much activity do we have from our veterans in our tribe that have been classified as CVFLs, Combat Veterans Front Lines, percentage-wise, what I've come across and done so far, just at 43%. That is a huge number. 43% of the claims I've done are dealing with combat veterans that have been to the front lines. And is that high? Extremely high, very high. Our tribe has had unbelievable experiences in the front lines of every single war since World War I. So the only place we haven't been is, we got World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Panama, Kuwait, Afghanistan, Iraq. I would say the Grenada. No, I take that back. We had a soldier that was in Grenada. So, yeah, we've been every place. And you look at our guys who've been wounded throughout the years and killed in action. Wow. We had one that was wounded and captured on Wake Island December 23rd, 1941, who ended up being, of all things, Chief Floyd's third cousin, a guy named John Hartung. He was our first POW from U.S. Marine captured on Wake Island. So again, the stories are just incredible, and that leads right into something that's, well, he leaves tomorrow. Our tribe is sending over a delegate, John Sloan, 23rd Infantry Division, Vietnam, the recipient of 4 Purple Hearts, wounded 4 times in Vietnam. Brother John, you might want to learn how to duck in the future. Well, John's going to France. He leaves tomorrow for Paris. He's going to be there. He's going to be there when President Trump speaks about American participation in the complete add to the victory of World War I. More importantly, most important, John's going to the American cemeteries, one, Saint Mihiel, and the other one at Mvskoke. We still have four of our men that were killed in action buried over there. John's going to go to every one of these grave sites, all 4 of them, and individually in place, embed into the ground there, the American flag, the Oklahoma flag, and our Mvskoke flag. In addition, he's going to also place pretty deeply in there a real eagle feather. Then lastly, he's taken Oklahoma soil with him, and he has 4 vials of Oklahoma soil from our land, from Okmulgee, from our tribal grounds, from our tribal complex, and he's going to sprinkle our soil over the resting areas of our 4 veterans. So John's representing all of us in France to mark the 100th anniversary of the ending of World War I.
So in essence, he's bringing them home.
Exactly. The philosophy on us, when I came up with this, they can't come home to Oklahoma, so we're bringing Oklahoma to them. And I think it's vitally important. Again, John will be here today at 12 o'clock. Specifically, he's coming over today because we're going to go out and we're going to dig up dirt in front of our statues, in front of our Veterans Building, right there at the base of our soldiers in the attack. And that's where he's going to dig it up, put it in the vials, and that's the significance. And what's also pretty emotional is our chief and second chief will be there today to witness this. And so it's very emotional what we're doing. We're doing this for ourselves. We're very quiet about it. John will take the appropriate pictures. He will come back, give it to the press, and share with our citizens. But this is something that we have very quietly wanted to do, and Chief and the council have blessed it, and we're sending one of our best over there.
The Veterans Administration takes a lot of care in honoring our veterans every year. Now, what has your office got planned for 2018?
Sure. This year we divided up into 2 days. Tomorrow, Thursday, from 10 to 1300, we're going to shut the office down except for open house. We're going to have an open house, invite everybody come in and look and read and see what's in there. It is phenomenal. I mean, if you haven't been in the Veterans Building, come by and take a look, because our history that we have inside is from World War I to the present. And yesterday, it was really neat yesterday, Gary, because I went and voted yesterday here in Okmulgee, and I had to wait a long time to vote. Well, our polling place, a lot of fellow Creeks were there, a lot of Creeks. And I wanted to yell out to them, now you get it. Now you finally get it. I hope every one of you have already gone to the Veterans Building, because you're here because you visited the Veterans Building, and you know you're voting because of their blood, sweat, and tears. So tomorrow, the open house, come by and take a look. Very quietly take a look and see what they've done. It is absolutely incredible. There are stories and just incredible feats of courage, sacrifice. Then tomorrow night at 6 o'clock, again, that's some of the things we do. I got a call yesterday from a lady whose granddaughter is doing a report on their family's military history. The only time we can meet is tomorrow night at 6 o'clock. She's going to bring her granddaughter up all the way from Holdenville. And so to me, that's like, well, this is what this is for. You got a granddaughter who's 13 years old, cognizant enough to want to know about the family history. And we have that family military history in the building. We'll make copies of it, talk about it, explain what things mean. And it's just very heartwarming. So that's tomorrow is open house. Then on Friday, good old Dr. Randall, Monty Randall over there at the college, in conjunction with him, we're going to show a movie from 10 to 12 o'clock called The Lost Battalion. It's a movie starring Ricky Schroeder. It's a true story about a battalion in World War I that was cut off. But it encompasses all of us. You look at this movie, you look at our Creeks who fought over there in World War I. They didn't quit, they didn't surrender, they kept on going and going and going. So from 10 to 12 at the college, Mvskoke Creek Nation College, we're going to be with Dr. Randall presenting that movie.
Now, let me ask you about that. When you watch a movie like that, the old, fix bayonets and go over the top kind of thing, how does that strike you as being different from your own experiences? Obviously, the technology and things, but
technology. Oh, Gary, it's night and day. World War I was an extremely dirty war, very dirty. Tremendous amount of hand-to-hand combat, trench warfare, the slaughter of waves and waves and waves of hundreds of thousands of these guys going across the field and getting mowed down from the other side. Now, because of technology, bayonet charges, will they still happen? Will they? Yes, they will, absolutely. But to the extent that they did in World War I, not unless you run out of bullets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are other stupider ways to do this. Now,
but next year, Gary, is our big events. Everybody knows we only march once every 4 years to honor our free election in our tribe. Doesn't matter who's elected as chief or assistant chief. Who's ever elected, we know has been elected freely and without duress, and it's just and it's legitimate. So we march to honor that. We march to honor that the military arm of the Creek Nation is under civilian command and control. It's a very comforting feeling to know that. Very comforting feeling. So we march as veterans to get that done, and we're hoping to coordinate with the casino next year as well, so they'll host it like Travis Thompson used to do with really good meal, and then free cards so they could go inside and play a little bit of the game. So we're hoping that gets together. And we also pray for good weather.
Oh, that's the first time you said meal. I think it's always been chow in the past.
Yeah, I know. I'm changing.
Well, let me ask you, in a couple of minutes we have left, as long as I've known you, it's felt like, watching you work, it felt like you were still serving. Yeah, whether it's in this capacity or when I see you in your dress blues or something like that. Does it feel like you're still part of that experience? And
the average Mvskoke veteran and the average veteran out there takes their time in the military, and most of them, like 99% of them, transfers right into civilian life. They were good in the military and they're a veteran. Okay, they recognize that, they realize that. What they want to do is they want to continue that tradition throughout their life because it worked. It's a good system. And so they want to bring that discipline and that commitment over to civilian life. Just because you're a good soldier doesn't mean you're going to be a good civilian. So we all work at it to be just as good as we were in the military. It's not that hard of a transition. It's, again, to screw up in the military, you really got to work at it. You really got to work hard to do something wrong in the military. But generally, there's a commitment that I've seen from Mvskoke veterans. Again, I work around us all the time, but we're no different than any other tribe or anybody else in America. We are veterans. We're very proud of that. And I would say, Gary, we're actually tribes within our tribe. We're the Marine tribe, the Army tribe, Navy tribe, Air Force tribe, Coast Guard tribe. But we carry forward with us as civilians what we learned in the military. And that's what I think everybody's veteran I've known strives to be recognized as. We're good civilians, thanks to the military. So let's let our civilian life be better than our military life.
Okay, wow. That's pretty amazing there. Well, we're going to have to move on, cut it off there. Thank you so much, Mr. Davis, for coming in. We appreciate you taking time.
Darren, Gary, all's my pleasure. God bless our United States. God bless our Mvskoke Nation. Really, God bless our veterans.
Yes.
Hoorah.
Amen. Okay, well, we're going to get to these messages real quick. Do you have something to add?
No. Go ahead and get started.
America Recycles Day on the 15th. Coming up Thursday, November 15th, from 9 to 3, Mvskoke Creek Nation Recycling Center will be collecting all kinds of stuff, but no glass refrigerators, small appliances, or car batteries. So if you want to check them out, do so and get a hot dog. That's on November the 15th.
I got Big Casita United Methodist Church Veterans Day program. It'll be on November 12th. And the program will start at 11 a.m. Give y'all directions out there. It's 2 miles east on New Morris Road and 3.5 miles south on Prairie Belle Road. They spelled Prairie wrong, but 3.5 miles south on Prairie Belle Road.
It wasn't a school, was it? Okay, well, Oklahoma City Thunder Hustle Camp is coming up for November 21st for those young folks interested in basketball. Wednesday, the 21st, at the Mvskoke Dome here in Okmulgee, and lots of instruction and developmental drills. But you take word here, it's $55 per camper. So that's a big one there.
Gary, quick question. You sure it's on the 21st? Because I had the 20th.
That's what it says here. The 21st.
Oh man, okay, I got to figure out something then because I was told the 20th. So we got to figure that one out. Native American Christmas Market Saturday, December 1st, from 10 to 5, will be going on at the Glenpool Creek Indian Community Activity Building. That's 14000 South Casper Avenue in Glenpool, December 1st. And
one more is December the 1st on Saturday. If you're in Wetumpka, you can go to their Christmas Bazaar. It's gifts, hats, handmade crafts, the usual sorts of things. For more information, 405-380-2640. Concessions available, free booth space. Wow, Christmas already. Mm-hmm. Oh, my gosh. We've had some incredible folks talk with us today. I'm just felt a little drained and honored at the same time. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was really good to hear the stories and then to hear from what Ken Davis over at Veterans Affairs, what they're doing and what they're going to be having for our veterans here. I kind of got a glimpse of that once upon a time. I was on an assignment in Alaska with the National Guard. And we were out in this transport all day going to these villages. And when I got off, you grab your gear and you head out the back tailgate there. And I had a lady friend that was waiting for me there. And for just that split second, I thought, oh, this must be what it's like for these people coming home. That's amazing.
Wow.
Oh, anyway, luckily I didn't have to stick around or anything.
Yep.
So that'll do it for us. Gary Fife, Joe Jifkados.
Darren DeLon, Joe Jifkados.
Saying thank you for listening. Mabo Hedja Wedskis. You've been listening to Mvskoke Radio. Join us again next week for more local, tribal, and community news and updates. Mado.
We're not scared to lose it all. Security drunk through the wall. Future dreams we have to realize. 1,000 skeptics.